Michael, I thought about how things proceed in court, and I realized that you wouldn't get the full scope of it unless you got an authentic view of things that included emotion. Generally, I'm not an emotional person. So I asked my sister here to get her perspective. I'm keeping it authentic by not telling her what I'm about to say until just now so that her responses will be spur of the moment, whatever comes to her mind. From the original correspondence starting back as far as July 2023, all the way until the second machine had been delivered on October 25th, or was that? Yeah, 15 months later, we were told that the machines would be processing three powdered ingredients. When we were called back to investigate the first unloader for stalling mid-delivery, we opened it and found solid chunks of soda ash were jamming up the auger blades. The machine was designed for powder. Letting anything solid go into it, it voids all contracts that say powder on them. Any agreements that we ever had that were about powder, they were to process powder. So anything besides powder goes in the machine. The machine was not designed for anything but powder. You were responsible not to let solids go in the machine because you never asked me to process semi-solids or a powder mixed with rocks or any of that stuff. The first machine worked well for roughly 1 week while the first product ran through it was in the powder form. The second week, your employees began feeding the machine with semi-solid ingredients. The machine would struggle with the chunks of hardened ingredient. The ingredient was not stored in a climate-controlled warehouse, and as a result, the outside edges of the super sack had hardened due to moisture in the air. When this happened to me here, when I first saw that, I just started running my air conditioner on the weekends. And of course, the air conditioner pulls the moisture out of the air, and your powder remained powder the entire time that I used it. It never turned hard again, just that one weekend, and only a little bit hard, so soft that I could just squeeze it and turn it back to powder. But you didn't do that. You allowed your ingredient to get harder and harder with time. At this point, the solid chunks had the consistency of sandstones. A person could crush one back into powder with their hand. When you were informed that the hardened chunks were the cause of the machine struggling, you requested that we give the machine more power so the machine could crush the sandstone chunks back into powder. I reprogrammed the computer to sense the jam and reset itself. And then we were informed by Darius that the machine was jamming roughly 3 times a day. The following week, the sandstone chunks became larger and harder. The next time we returned, we witnessed the machine resetting itself roughly 3 times a minute. This time, the chunks could not be easily crushed back into powder with one hand. Our purpose for this visit was to install high torque gearboxes because the previous visit, we told you about the chunks and you simply asked us to do something to make the machine crush the chunks. At that time, I did not know the chunks were going to get harder or larger. After the torque had been doubled, the machine was still struggling to deliver the product. Further investigation revealed a bearing that had never been greased. Replacing the bearing successfully returned the machine to operational condition for about 1 more week. The next time we returned, the sandstones had become completely hardened rocks that wouldn't break even when we threw them down on a cement floor. The employees had broken the auger assist adapter by trying to force the machine to crush these rocks.
Yes, when we came in, the first thing I saw was the adapter piece, the little aluminum piece was gouged and deformed from somebody forcing it and trying to fight the motor or push the motor.
Yeah. And I had found that the tip of the 1/2-inch ratchet was broken off in it. Now, I own those ratchets. I can jump up and down on the handles, and I know what it takes to break that off. It literally takes minimum 250 foot-pounds, but really your higher quality ones don't break off to almost 1,000 foot-pounds. Now I don't know how high quality that one that broke off in there was, but it was at least 250 foot-pounds of force put through it and to break the tip off, which means they were basically standing on the handle, because pushing with your hands, you can only push your body's weight. So they were really trying to force that machine to break up the rocks. Okay. Okay, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna have you read this one.
Okay.
Read it towards the camera, yeah.
We never gave them the impression that we would be willing to sponsor or fund any portion of the expenses of this project. The first machine to be delivered was the gantry. The gantry was finished in April and delivered the first week of May 2024. On the day of delivery, Fred informed both Michael and Kristen that we wanted a progress check for $20,000, but we needed $15,000 to continue this project. We were given a check for $5,000 dated May 5th, 2024. This was not enough to cover the debt that this project had accrued, and as a result, halted the project due to the lack of funds. At this point, Kristen believed that we would fund their project out of our pocket, even though we would not be any kind of beneficiary of the added value that these machines would provide to their business.
Yeah, I never agreed to fund your project. And because if it was something I could resell to my neighbor or to someone else and get my funds back, then wonderful, then I might have. But this is not something that anyone else needs. It was being built specifically for that room of your business to do what you need. There's no value. That machine has no value to me whatsoever. Why would I invest any of my money, let alone $45,000 worth of money? No, I would not invest it into your thing, and you should have realized that you should have asked, do I want to invest money into your project? Because no, if it's your project, you have to put up the money, not me. The first and biggest delay on this project was the lack of funding caused on May 5th, 2024. Funding resumed on June 4th when we were given a check for $20,000. Due to this month of no income from debut development, we accepted contracts from other businesses that needed to be closed out prior to returning to the unloader project. Had the unloader funding not been cut off, we could have avoided this 10-week delay. That delay was not caused by us. We returned to the project in September and delivered the first unloader in October. That machine could have been delivered in June had we avoided that funding delay, but there were other delays. Several other smaller delays were due to debut development calling us in to do diagnosis and repair to other machines. For example, the liquid line was shocking people, and there was plenty of other little delays that you gotta realize I can't be in two places at the same time. I can't be here working on your job and be there working on that and think that we can hold the same timeline. Every time you call me, you gotta be willing to push back the timeline a little bit. But anyway, those other smaller delays combined constituted roughly 4 weeks. Had those delays been avoided, the first unloader could have been delivered in May of 2024. Would it have been appropriate for us to tell our best customer that we can't help them because we are too busy working for them?
So the other project that we were called in on was what I call the CBN project. It was CEB-N project, working with some kind of a liquidy wax, and Kristen had purchased a conveyor, and we worked on that for a few weeks.
Yeah,
that was a delay.
Right, our combined delays might have actually been more than a month. I'm roughing it. But should you have realized that we can't work both here and there at the same time? Realistically, you should have realized that. We're a two-person crew, and I'm not gonna hire somebody in for just 1 week. You know, it's just unreasonable. The system included a gantry and 2 unloaders. The system cannot be used without the gantry because a forklift cannot lift the super sack high enough to get the product over the hopper of the unloader because of the low ceiling height interfering with the mast of the forklift. As a result, delivering an unloader first would have become two problems. Problem one, the gantry being the largest component needed the entire space for assembly. Without the gantry being in place, number two, without the gantry being in place, the product could not be placed in the unloader. As a result, the gantry needed to be the first machine delivered. Really the big mistake was you didn't come here and pay attention to the job well enough to see what was ready. You didn't talk to me enough to realize the gantry needed to be first, the unloader needed to be second. Yes, the system can run with just the gantry and one unloader, didn't have to have both. You would have known that if you could have paid attention to the project a little bit more. You got $90,000 invested in a project, you're obligated to pay attention to it more than you did. We were informed that we would need, we were never informed that we would need to filter solids out of the ingredients prior to processing. Filtering solids out of the ingredients has always been the responsibility of debut development. Mostly because you never once told me, I want you to process semi-solid product. You never once said that. And if you had, I would have focused more on the filtering of the solids, had I known. You're in the business, you work with this particular product all the time, you know it hardens. I'm new to this business. I learned that it hardens halfway through the project. I didn't even know. Storing the ingredients in a climate-controlled warehouse was always the responsibility of debut development. A, you should not have ordered any ingredients before the machine arrived. B, if you did order them, you needed to store them in responsibly, in an environment that wouldn't let them harden. That's not on me. You can't put that kind of thing on us. Both Michael and Kristen had been invited to our facility many times. We wanted to show our progress. At one point, Kristen offered to have Michael help us. Actually, I wrote this for you to read. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead from the top.
Okay, both Michael and Kristen had been invited to our facility multiple times. We wanted to show our progress. At one point, Kristen offered to have Michael help us, and Fred immediately accepted. Fred asked for help with CAD because Michael gave us the impression that CAD was among his skills. No one from debut development ever came to our manufacturing plant. No one came to view the machine in running condition in order to sign off the machine that the machine met their needs. Aside from applying pressure, no attention was given to this $90,000 investment. At one point, Kristen raised her voice saying, "Deliver my machine," to Fred's face. No one ever showed up here.
Yeah, do you not realize, it's like $90,000 is like an expensive car or a cheap house. And in both cases, you are actually legally not allowed to buy it unless you do due diligence. And due diligence means putting your feet on the ground at the place, putting your eyes to it, right, like being there, putting some attention to it. You can't spend $90,000 and think that you're going to get an Amazon A to Z money back guarantee. That's not how things work. That is not business in this world. And I think you've learned that lesson now, but you can't hold that against me. First of all, I never once did you wrong in any way, shape, or form. The whole project, I always looked out for you the best that I could. I did diligently. I worked late nights over and over and over. I'm talking about 16-hour Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Then come Friday, I was so whooped, I would stop at about 12 hours. But I was coming back in for 8-hour Saturdays and Sundays. I was putting in 80, 90 hours a week after week after week, trying to make the job go faster because of your delays, because of troubles that you had, because I was being pressured. I had Kristen yelling at me, telling me, "Deliver my machine," and truthfully, the machine could have been delivered as early, actually both machines could have been delivered as early as May, had you not delayed the project, had you not made changes. That's the other thing. You made a handful of changes to the project that have not yet been paid. In truth, you still owe me for that. I don't owe you anything. I know you think you want your money back, but no, absolutely not. You do not deserve money back because I never did you wrong in any way, shape, or form. The whole time I had your back. I still consider you to be a friend. I never once turned against you in any way, shape, or form. We did prepare for a lawsuit, just in case it went to court. We are fully prepared. And what I realized by preparing for the lawsuit is that I truly never did you wrong. In court, I for sure will win. There's no doubt in my mind, unless you find a lawyer that can pull some shady tactic or some loophole I hadn't considered. But the reason that I can't lose in court is because I never did you wrong. So anyway, I still would like to consider you a friend. Truthfully, I will still work with you on future projects, but I'm not willing to work with Kristen because she disrespected me. You don't get in my face, yell at me, and put pressure on me after peering through a peephole. She didn't pay attention to the product whatsoever. She just put pressure on me because it didn't meet her needs, but she was the one who caused the big delay that led to your product hardening and led to all the other troubles.